In this class we want to talk about decision making, and we're going to refer to an area of decision making which is known as decision theory, which gives us some insights or tools with which we may approach decision making. We'll look at some of these towards the end of the video, but to start, decision theory represents a general approach to decision making which is suitable for a wide range of operations management decisions, including capacity planning, product and service design, location planning, and equipment selection. So decision theory may be applied to a wide variety of important decision making processes within the organization, within a company. Not just limited to the four I've got here. It could range right across to looking at changing factory layouts or office layouts, or introducing new machinery or new technology, or whatever it is. So decision theory is a very important tool that management may resort to. Unfortunately, as we'll see, it doesn't give definitive answers, but there again we wouldn't expect that. We can't know the future with certainty, and we can't tell what's going to happen, so it's unlikely that we can use decisions today to give us 100% proof insights into what's going to happen tomorrow. So let's look ahead nonetheless. Let's look at the elements of decision theory. Well, it's a set of possible future conditions, which we'll call scenarios. They exist that will have a bearing on the results of the decision. So we're trying to look at possible future scenarios, possible future outcomes, and then trying to decide amongst the outcomes. We're trying to decide what policies or what processes are important to put in place now to bring about that scenario in the future. There are, of course, uncertainties associated with the scenarios. We can't tell the future precisely. It's almost deceitful to try and pretend that we can. So we have lots of tools in business and management that purport to help us to make decisions that look into the future. But really we have to be very circumspect about these, including well-established ones like investment appraisal. If we invest in a project today, what's the likely payback period? Well, we don't know. That is the truth. The truth is that markets could change, and it could change very rapidly. So everything we say about the future is normally hemmed in with a lot of assumptions, and we need to make those assumptions explicit. We need to say openly what we're assuming. But in truth, the world in which we live can go in many directions. There's the onset of rapid technological change, there's political change, there's demographic changes. There are many factors that can upset decision making. So the future is uncertain. There is a difference between uncertainty and risk in terms of the way we see both of these. Risk we normally associate with probability. We talk about the chances of something happening in the future being a certain probability. So we're talking about the chances of some outcome. Whereas uncertainty is, if you like, pure ignorance. We have no idea. We can't assign a probability because we don't know what the outcomes are going to be. We haven't got statistics, we haven't got trends, we haven't got past behavior. We've nothing to rely on. It's uncertain. And if we think about it, business is confronted by uncertainty all the time. If it develops a new product, it doesn't know perhaps precisely how customers are going to relate to that product. It may conduct focus groups and do some sort of preliminary research with customers, but that research may be biased, or it may be that by the time the product actually comes to market, the customers have changed. So there's a lot of uncertainty in business. So what we normally do with uncertainty is we tend to list the alternatives from which the manager may choose. We list out various possibilities, and then the manager selects one, and that may govern his or her decision-making process. They look at all of the alternatives that may happen in the future, and they try to select amongst those. A known payoff for each alternative under each possible future condition. If at all possible, they work out the various possibilities into the future and then look at the payoffs, the outcomes if you like, under each alternative. They try to work out if the market expands and if everything goes well, then the payoff will be a certain amount. If the market does not expand, the payoff will be less and it'll be this amount. So there's a lot of, I suppose, what many people call guesstimates involved in this whole process. Trying to imagine different alternatives that may arise in the future, different market situations, for example, that may arise in the future, different sales levels that may arise in the future. Try to work out likely revenues associated with those possible sales in the future, and then make a decision amongst those. Let's see how it may work in practice, or let's see how the theory suggests that we could make decisions under these circumstances. First of all, we have what's known as a payoff table. This simply a set of results, a set of outcomes that can be imagined in future alternative scenarios. So for example, let's say the alternatives in the future is low, moderate and high. Low sales, moderate sales, high sales. Let's just say. And then we have the alternatives. We have a small factory, a medium-sized factory or a large factory. Now, if we have a small factory and there's very little sales into the future, the company gets £11 million, let's say a year, which is actually quite significant. If it's a small factory and it's moderate sales, it still would get 11 million because maybe it needs to retool or reorganize itself to step up to more sales in the market. If it's high sales, the small factory may reorganize itself and gain extra sales, 14 million. The medium-sized facility, well, 5, 13 and 11. So moderate future demand seems to give this particular organization better sales. And with a large facility, it's -5, it loses £5 million, or 4 million if it's moderate sales, 18 million if it's high future demand. Now that could be seen as what's known as a payoff table, a payoff matrix, and the decision maker has to decide which size of factory to build right now. So they're looking at low sales in the future, moderate sales in the future, or high sales in the future. Where these figures came from, well, these are just guesses because we can't tell the future. So they're estimates. They try to work out reasonable estimates based on what they know from the demographics of the area, the income levels in the area, and so on. They try to work out what the possible sales are, what's the competition in the market, what prices can be charged. Working on all of those, they can try to work out what the future demand will be. So they try to calculate those figures. And then the decision maker must decide between a small factory, a medium size, or a large one, which one to select given that payoff table. Now, in the literature, there are different approaches to trying to resolve this, but it all really hinges on the psychology of the decision maker. So, decision making under uncertainty. Well, one is to use what's known as maxi-min. Choose the alternative which has the maximum of the minimum possible payoffs for each alternative. So look at the worst possible outcome for each alternative and then choose the maximum. Well, that's quite a famous one. We'll see how it works in a second. It's a very conservative strategy because it tries to make the best of the worst possible outcomes for each decision. Let's see how it works. Here's our table, the one we had earlier, our matrix, and we have low, moderate and high demands and small, medium and large facilities, small, medium and large factories, let's say. And we have the figures in here which are the payoffs. These are the outcomes that are estimated under each of these conditions. Now we're going to use the maxi-min. So with the maxi-min, what we do is we have an extra column over here on the right hand side. It's just been inserted. If you look at it, it's there. Now the minimum column takes the minimum of each of the payoffs across. So if you look at the small factory, it's 11, 11, 14. So the minimum is 11. Look at the medium one. It's 5, 13, 11. Well, the minimum of 5, 13 and 11 is 5. That's the minimum. For the large factory or the large facility, it's -5, 4 and 18. So the minimum is -5. So now we've got a column showing the minima of the matrix of these different rows. So the column shows the minimum values for the possible rows. Now the maxi-min means take the maximum of the minima. Now we found the minima, it's 11, 5 and -5. So taking the maximum means the decision maker should opt for a small factory or a small facility and go for the 11. That's the best outcome. So that's one decision rule, maxi-min. And we can see how maxi-min works. Once we have the payoff matrix, then we can work out what the factory size should be using the maxi-min rule. There's also a maxi-max. Choose the alternative with the largest possible payoff. This is quite a risky strategy. This is a radical strategy. It's one for a real gambler. Work out the maxima of each row and then take the maximum of the maxima. This is for somebody who really loves taking risk. Here's our matrix again. Same one as before. Different factory sizes or facility sizes down the left hand side and different demand possibilities over there. Now if we take the maximum, this is the maximum column on the right hand side. If we take that maximum, we go across the, let's say, a small facility. We have 11, 11 and 14. Well, the maximum is 14. For the medium, it's 5, 13 and 11. The maximum is 13. For the large facility, it's -5, 4 and 18. The maximum is 18. Now, the maxi-max is take the maximum of the maxima. So this person will go for a large facility, build a large facility and try and get the maxima. It's a very risky strategy because the company could end up with -5. If the future demand is not as anticipated, then -5 could be the outcome. Or it could get 4, which is not so good. But it might be lucky. There might be high demand and it has the facilities to meet that high demand, so it maximizes the maxima. Now there are other possible decision-making criteria. There's an average one, which is based on the work of Laplace. Choose the alternative with the best average payoff of any of the alternatives. Well, let's look at it. Here's the matrix we had before, and now I've inserted a column on the right hand side, the average column, which is just 11 plus 11 plus 14 divided by 3, approximately 12. The next one's approximately 9.7, and the next one across, -5, 4 and 18 is 5.7. So you've taken the average of the low, moderate and high, and then take the Laplace, which is take the highest average. So that's another way of looking at it. In fact, there are many different rules for looking at uncertainty under these conditions. We've looked at maximin, maximax and Laplace, but we could, instead of taking an average like Laplace has done here, we could have weighted each of these. We could have said that the low one is 50% chance of happening, moderate's 25%, and high is 25%, and that will give us a different set of figures again. So there are different approaches that are taken in the literature to dealing with uncertainty. These are just 3 ways. There are many more, and you'll bump into these as you read through the literature on decision making. But that's all we're going to deal with in this session, so we're just going to look at those 3 and leave it at that and say thank you for watching.